Have you ever felt the weight of time slipping through your fingers while life around you pulsates with urgency? That sensation of a later that never arrives, a deep sleep that prevents us from living in the now? Nature, in its millennial wisdom, has a creature that, through its very existence, unveils one of the most profound mysteries of the human soul: postponement, inertia, the procrastination that robs us of the present and leaves us only with regret. Prepare yourself for a fascinating journey, where the life of a small insect will reveal much about our own, and perhaps inspire us to awaken before the final song fades away. Procrastination and deep apathy are not mere character flaws, occasional lapses in discipline, or simple manifestations of laziness. They are, in fact, complex and often deeply incapacitating emotional states that silently infiltrate our psyche. Think of them as an invisible, yet dense, labyrinth where our will seems to get lost. And the mere idea of initiating an action, however necessary, transforms into an unbearable burden. Have you ever found yourself looking at a crucial task, be it an important report, a delicate phone call you know you need to make, or even a cherished personal dream held for years, and felt an inexplicable paralysis, as if an invisible force held you back and prevented you from taking the first step? This is the essence of procrastination, the subtle and often self-destructive art of postponing what needs to be done, exchanging the undeniable urgency of reality for the comforting illusion that a future time will stretch indefinitely, patiently waiting for you. It's that seductive inner voice that whispers in your ear, "I'll do it later, tomorrow, next week," when the conditions are absolutely perfect and all the stars align. This manifestation, which may seem so trivial and harmless at first glance, permeates our daily lives in surprisingly broad and varied ways, weaving itself into the tapestry of our days. It reveals itself in the crucial reports submitted at the last minute, rushed and incomplete, in important calls that remain on the to-do list for days or even weeks, gathering virtual dust, and most painfully and regrettably, in dreams and aspirations that remain filed away, dusty and forgotten, waiting for a perfect moment that, ironically, never arrives because the present never seems perfect enough to start. Millions of people postpone important medical appointments that could save their lives, the difficult and necessary conversation with a family member that could heal old wounds, the beginning of a new project that could in fact revolutionize their careers or lives, or even the simple and pleasurable act of organizing their own home, creating a more harmonious environment. Procrastination, therefore, is not just about work or daily tasks. It is, fundamentally, about the life we fail to live fully, about the rich experiences we postpone, and the infinite possibilities that vanish into the limbo of later. But there is an even deeper and darker stage that can emerge and take hold: deep apathy. Here, the issue is no longer just a momentary postponement of tasks, but an almost complete and paralyzing absence of desire, an overwhelming lack of energy even to care. Life, which once possessed vibrant colors, captivating sounds, and rich textures, suddenly seems faded, gray, meaningless, and without purpose. The person feels like a passive observer of their own existence, as if they were watching a movie in which they should be the vibrant and active protagonist, but instead see themselves as a distant, disconnected, and emotionless spectator. It's the desolate feeling that that nothing matters enough to move a muscle, to get out of bed, to start a conversation, or to pursue any goal, no matter how small or simple. It's the gradual loss of enthusiasm, curiosity, hope, and the very vital flame of life. Whether in the professional sphere, in the most intimate personal relationships, in the pursuit of new knowledge, or in the most basic self-care, apathy acts like a heavy dark veil obscuring the beauty, the urgency, and the vast potential that life offers. It drains motivation, extinguishes passion, empties the soul, and leaves us in a state of prolonged, almost catatonic, emotional inertia. Both procrastination and apathy rob us of our innate capacity to act, to fully feel the nuances of life, and to live authentically and engaged. They leave a bitter trail of lost opportunities, of what-ifs, and a heavy burden of regret, a persistent echo of "it could have been." It's as if we were in a deep and prolonged sleep, an unwanted hibernation, awaiting an awakening that, at times, only happens when time completely runs out, and all that remains are melancholic echoes of what could have been, or, even worse, absolute silence. At the heart of our metaphor, and with an almost poetic precision that nature in its complexity and simplicity often offers us, we find the cicada, an insect that embodies in a surprising and mirrored way the very essence of procrastination and apathy in its unique life cycle. Imagine for a moment a living being that spends the vast majority of its existence for years on end. And we are not talking about months, but long and significant years in a state of near inertia, a prolonged silent, and to the outside world, practically invisible sleep underground. The cicada, in its nymph stage, lives buried, hidden from sunlight, the sounds of the wind, and the visible dangers of the outside world. There, in its secure, humid, and dark burrow, it feeds on the sap of tree roots, growing slowly, but without haste, almost imperceptibly, in an underground development that borders on geological slowness. This subterranean and discreet existence can last from 2 to an impressive 17 years, depending on the species, a period of time that, for us humans, represents a considerable and precious slice of a lifetime, equivalent to an entire childhood or a complete adolescence. While underground, the cicada is an invisible and inaudible creature. It is not seen, it does not actively interact with the outside world. It does not visibly contribute to the ecosystem above it, and its vibrant song, which defines it, is still in the distant future. It is a silent existence, almost non-existent to the outside world, a latent promise of life that is not yet manifested, a blank canvas waiting to be painted. It is the epitome of prolonged inaction, of endless waiting, of life in suspension. And then, in a dramatic and almost unpredictable climax, after this long and patient period of waiting and underground development, the cicada emerges. Its emergence is not an isolated or solitary event. It is often a massive and synchronized phenomenon, with thousands, sometimes millions, of cicadas bursting from the ground in a matter of days or even hours, as if the earth itself were breathing life. It is as if an internal biological clock, with unwavering mathematical precision, finally triggered an unpostponable alarm, an ancient, an irresistible signal for them to break free from their torpor and fulfill their inevitable destiny. The transformation from a subterranean creature to a winged being is a spectacle of nature, a moment of radical metamorphosis. But, once out of the ground, the cicada's life is terrifyingly brief and intensely frantic. Its aerial and visible existence lasts only a few weeks, a blink of an eye, a brief summer, compared to its years of seclusion. It emerges with a single and pressing purpose: to reproduce and, thus, perpetuate the species, ensuring the continuity of life. Its loud, vibrant, and, for many, deafening song fills the air on warm summer nights, becoming the characteristic soundtrack of the season. It is a sound of undeniable urgency, a primordial call to life, to connection, and to continuity. There is no time for hesitation, for procrastination, for postponing mating and egg laying. It is a period of intense activity, a very little time for everything that needs to be done, before inevitable death reaches it. This strong visual and auditory image, years of inactivity and underground waiting, followed by a short but powerful and intense frenzy of life, song, and reproduction, serves as an almost perfect mirror for human behaviors of postponement and the critical moments of urgency that, at times, force us to act, to recover the time we believed lost. The similarity between the cicada's life cycle and the human experience with procrastination is so striking that it is almost eerily precise, like a biological echo of our own existential dilemmas. It is not just a superficial analogy, but a profound parallel that resonates with our condition. Consider the cicada underground, living for years in a state of dormancy and inactivity, postponing its grand appearance in the world, its moment of glory and purpose. It does not act. It does not interact with the external environment. It does not sing its characteristic melody. It does not reproduce. This subterranean, silent, dark, and prolonged phase perfectly mirrors procrastination and deep apathy in our own lives, where we remain buried in our inertia. How many of us spend years, or even decades, buried in unsatisfactory routines, in jobs that drain our soul and energy, in stagnant relationships that do not make us happy, or in an illusory comfort zone that, in reality, traps us? How many of us postpone the crucial decision to change jobs, to start that long-dreamed personal project that would give meaning to our existence, to seek a more meaningful and authentic relationship, to finally take care of our physical and mental health, or to learn something new that could radically expand our horizons and open new doors? We live in a prolonged sleep, a bubble of inaction and conformity, unrealistically convinced that there is plenty of time, that the song of action and achievement can be postponed indefinitely. The dream of writing a book, learning a new language, traveling the world, starting our own business, reconnecting with a distant family member, all of this waits like the cicada in its underground cocoon, awaiting a perfect moment that ironically never arrives, because the present never seems perfect enough to start acting. Joy, personal fulfillment, genuine connection, and life itself are postponed. However, and herein lies the painful beauty of the metaphor, just as the cicada is driven by an unpostponable biological imperative to emerge for its brief and intensely vital period, we too are invariably confronted by a deadline. For the cicada, this deadline is dictated by its relentless biological clock, by specific environmental conditions that signal the exact and unpostponable moment of its appearance. For us humans, this deadline can manifest in various forms, all equally powerful in their impact and ability to shake us. An unexpected health crisis that confronts us with the finitude of life. The irreversible loss of a unique opportunity that will never repeat itself. The painful process of aging that makes us question the time remaining and the unfulfilled dreams. Or the sudden and alarming realization that time has run out and what we wanted to do has not been done, perhaps never will be. And it is at that moment, in that forced and often desperate awakening, that we act, driven by a surge of urgency and, painfully, by regret. The cicada's deafening and vibrant song, which to us evokes the warmth of summer and the exuberant vitality of nature, can also be the deafening sound of anguish from those who realize that time to act is scarce, perhaps non-existent. It is the despair of those who woke up too late to fully enjoy life, to realize their deepest dreams, to genuinely connect with themselves and others. The urgency of its song is the visceral echo of our own lament for years lost, for chances we let slip away, for a life that, from so much postponement, faded into a whisper or, even worse, into silence. The cicada shows us that inaction comes at a cost, and that cost is life's very time. The fascinating and provocative connection between the cicada's inertia and human procrastination, although predominantly metaphorical and symbolic, finds deep resonance in fundamental concepts of behavioral psychology, neuroscience, and even evolutionary biology. Procrastination, from the perspective of modern psychology, is far from being a mere reflection of laziness, lack of willpower, or a deficiency in time management. Instead, it is recognized as a sophisticated, albeit dysfunctional and often counterproductive, coping strategy for negative emotions. Renowned researchers in the field such as Timothy Pychyl from Carleton University have consistently demonstrated through decades of in-depth studies and research that the act of postponing tasks is intrinsically linked to our difficulty in regulating and dealing with uncomfortable feelings. When confronted with a task that evokes anxiety, boredom, frustration, insecurity, or even aversion, our brain, in its primary and instinctive search for immediate relief and pleasure, opts for an escape route. This road is postponement. By putting off the task, we experience a momentary and almost instant reward, the immediate reduction of the emotional discomfort associated with that task. This feeling of relief, however brief, illusory, and detrimental in the long run, powerfully reinforces the behavior of procrastination, creating a vicious and difficult-to-break cycle. This dynamic is an interesting parallel with the cicada. It remains underground, a safe, predictable environment seemingly free from the immediate challenges of predators, bad weather, or the dangerous active search for food. The primary reward of its subterranean inactivity is safe survival, the absence of immediate threats, mirroring the human search for relief from discomfort and aversion to difficulty. On the other hand, deep apathy, a persistent and debilitating state of disinterest, lack of motivation, diminished emotional response, and general indifference, can have deeper roots, often linked to neurochemical imbalances in the brain. A decrease in the activity of neurotransmitters such as dopamine, for example, which is crucial for motivation, the reward system, the sensation of pleasure, the pursuit of goals, and the very feeling of well-being, can lead to anhedonia and a dramatic lack of initiative. An apathetic person may find it difficult to feel enthusiasm for activities they once enjoyed, and the very idea of starting something seems devoid of meaning, purpose, or reward. The cicada in its underground state shows no activity, no apparent pleasure. It simply is existing in a state of biological inertia, which, although it is a natural and essential part of its cycle, for it serves as a powerful analogy for the lack of movement, the absence of enthusiasm, and life on pause that characterize human apathy. It is crucial to note that, for the cicada, emergence is an unpostponable biological imperative, an unquestionable genetic order, driven by precise environmental signals and a complex set of hormones. There is no choice in postponing the song and reproduction when the time comes. It is a genomic program that ensures the survival of the species. For us humans, the brain's reward and punishment system, along with the capacity for future projection and self-awareness, allows us this dangerous illusion of control over time. We can postpone because we imagine that there will be a convenient tomorrow, a day when we will feel more motivated or inspired. However, the signals of emergency, be it a severe health crisis, an approaching and non-negotiable deadline and opportunity, slipping away forever, or a sudden and painful realization of one's own mortality, eventually become unbearable, screaming so loudly that they cannot be ignored. They force us to leave our underground inertia and take action, often with the urgency and frenzy of the cicada in its brief but intensely vital period of external life, desperately trying to make up for lost time. Science, therefore, not only validates the metaphor, but helps us understand the complex brain and emotional mechanisms behind our inner cicada. Let's delve into some mini-stories that vividly illustrate how the cicada metaphor manifests in our daily behaviors, transforming us into human cicadas who almost unconsciously postpone the inevitable, waiting for a powerful and often painful external trigger to finally be forced into action. Maria's shelved dream. Maria, a woman in her 40s, had always dreamed of learning to play the guitar, a passion that accompanied her since adolescence, but which, ironically, was always put off due to lack of time. At different points in her life, she bought the instrument, a classical guitar, then an acoustic one, the lesson books, and even enrolled in some online courses, which promised to teach her to play in weeks, effortlessly. However, the guitar remained untouched in the corner of the living room, silent, covered by a thin layer of dust. almost like a forgotten piece of furniture. One day I'll start, when I have more time, after I finish this work project that's consuming me and leaving me exhausted. She would repeat to herself and to friends who now and then would ask about her musical hobby. Years passed, an entire decade, and the guitar, just like Maria in relation to this dream, remained in a state of dormancy, an unexplored potential, and a silent source of regret. One day, her young granddaughter, with the innocent and disarming curiosity of a child, picked up the guitar, strummed the strings out of tune, and asked, with wide eyes, "Grandma, why don't you play? It's so beautiful." At that moment, Maria felt a pang in her chest, a poignant pain for the lost opportunity, for the time that wouldn't come back, and for the simple joys she denied herself for so long. It was her final song, the abrupt awakening of urgency and regret. She finally enrolled in in-person classes and began to practice with a dedication and enthusiasm that surprised her, but with the sad and melancholic awareness that she could have enjoyed years and years of music, of moments of pleasure, self-expression, and connection. Maria's Cicada stayed underground for too long. Joe's Pa's career? Joe, a 50-year-old project manager, hated his job. He woke up every day feeling exhausted, unenthusiastic, and with the overwhelming sensation that he was wasting his potential and his life on something that didn't fulfill him in the slightest. He dreamed of seeking a new field, perhaps starting his own environmental consulting business, his true passion, or working with something more aligned with his values and principles. However, the idea of starting from scratch, exposing himself to the unknown of the job market or the inherent risk of a new business, completely paralyzed him. It's not the right time. The economy is unstable, and the responsibility is great. I'm not good enough for that. I need more courses and certifications first. It's too risky now. I have bills to pay and my children's college tuition, were the excuses he repeated to himself and to his wife, who had been encouraging him to change for years. His professional life was a stagnation, a subterranean existence with little light, no emotion, and deep boredom. Joe was the cicada in its safe, yet suffocating, tongue, until the company he worked for, in a drastic restructuring to face a financial crisis, carried out a large mass layoff. Joe was one of the thousands laid off, unemployed, with no option and forced by the need to support his family. He was compelled to seek something new, to reinvent himself. The emergency of the situation, the complete loss of his comfort zone, pushed him, with no more excuses, to do what he had been postponing for years. He ended up finding a job he loved in the environmental field, where he felt fulfilled and valued, and even began planning his own consultancy, but only after being expelled from his cocoon by an external and uncontrollable force. Aina's postponed health. Aina, a successful 55-year-old lawyer, always knew, deep in her heart, that she needed to change her lifestyle. Constant fatigue, increasing weight each year, joint pain, shortness of breath when climbing stairs, restless nights, everything indicated the urgent need for a transformation in her sedentary and stressful lifestyle. She promised herself to start a diet, begin exercising, sleep better, but the promises were always postponed. There was always a ready excuse: lack of time due to intense work and adult children who still depended on her daily stress that led her to seek comfort in food and TV series, laziness to cook or go to the gym. She lived in a state of deep apathy regarding her own health, prioritizing everything and everyone but herself. Aina was the cicada postponing her emergence from underground, ignoring the growing signs that the tunnel was collapsing, until a scare, an emergency hospitalization due to a severe cardiovascular problem, forced her brutal awakening. Suddenly, the urgency became palpable, undeniable. Her life was in imminent danger. The song of health rang loud and clear, echoing in the cold hospital corridors. She began to take care of herself with a dedication and discipline that previously seemed impossible, radically changing her diet and exercise routine, but at a much greater emotional and physical cost, and with the permanent scars of a serious illness, than if she had acted preventively when the signals were just whispers and not shouts of alarm. These vivid and everyday examples, which are repeated to varying degrees in the lives of millions of people, show us that, just like the cicada, many of us wait for an external trigger, be it a crisis, a loss, an illness, or an ultimatum from life, to move us, to shake us out of inaction, living a life of inertia that, at times, only breaks when time is running out, and the final song becomes an almost inaudible lament, laden with regret. The intricate and fascinating life cycle of the cicada, with its long and mysterious underground dormancy, followed by its brief, yet intensely vital, period of singing, mating, and reproduction, invites us to a profound and, at times, uncomfortable reflection on our own existence and on how we manage the most precious and irreplaceable resource we possess, time. What can we, in fact, learn from an insect that spends the vast majority of its life in inactivity and darkness and emerges for an explosion of life before its inevitable end? The answer lies in fundamental lessons about the urgency of life and the nature of action. The first and perhaps most crucial lesson the cicada offers us is about awareness of the finitude of time. The cicada does not possess the human capacity to postpone its emergence indefinitely. Its biological clock is relentless, dictating the exact and unpostponable moment of its appearance. There is no negotiation with nature. We humans, on the other hand, frequently live with the dangerous illusion of infinite time. This illusion, this false perception of temporal abundance, is often the root of our deepest procrastination. We believe, with blind faith, that there is always a tomorrow to start, a later to resolve, a chance to make up for lost time, to compensate for wasted opportunities, to understand viscerally and accept that our own song, our life, our dreams, our actions, our contributions, our legacy, also has a deadline, a temporal limit that approaches with every second, is the first and most painful yet paradoxically liberating step toward awakening. It is the acceptance that time is the most valuable and, tragically, non-renewable resource we possess, and every postponed moment is a moment lost forever. Secondly, the cicada teaches us about the purpose of action. It emerges from the ground with a single clear, pressing, and non-negotiable objective: to reproduce and perpetuate the species. And it does so with overwhelming urgency and intensity, as if every moment were a treasure to be lived, and every second essential for the continuity of life. How often do we, amidst exhausting routines, incessant screen distractions, or the paralyzing fear of the unknown, lose sight of our life's purpose, our true goals? What is truly essential for us? What is our song, our unique contribution to the world? What do we need to sing in our lives to make them full, authentic, meaningful, and, in some way, contribute to something greater than ourselves? The honest and courageous reflection on what truly matters, on our deepest values, our greatest dreams, and the legacy we want to build, can be the powerful catalyst that pulls us out of inertia, apathy, and propels us into meaningful action, giving new meaning to our existence. Finally, the cicada reminds us that, even after a long and seemingly inactive period of waiting or inaction, awakening is not only possible, but fundamental and, at times, the only way to a life lived to its fullest. No matter how long we have been buried in our fears, our doubts, our apathy, our excuses, or in self-sabotaging behavior patterns, there will always be a moment to emerge, to come out of the underground and face the light, to transform inertia into movement. The crucial question, then, lies in our conscious choice. Will we wait for a severe external event, a serious health crisis, the irreversible loss of a loved one, an unexpected layoff, an ultimatum from life, that forces us to change, to compel us out of our comfort zone and inaction? Or will we proactively, consciously, and intentionally choose to awaken on our own before it is too late and time runs out? Will we make the most of the brief and precious time we have left to sing our own song, to live the life we deserve and desire to leave our mark, however small, on the vast stage of the world? Life, like the cicada cycle, is ephemeral and fleeting, and every day we postpone action, every moment we spend in inertia, is one less day to live fully, to realize our potential, to love, to learn, to be. The decision is ours, and time, contrary to what we think, does not wait. The cicada's deafening and vibrant song echoes in the summer air, reverberating an undeniable truth. Time is a river that flows incessantly, without pauses or returns, carrying every second with it. Will we continue to live in a prolonged sleep, buried in our excuses and fears, waiting for a painful deadline to force us to emerge? Or will we choose to awaken now, with urgency, purpose, and joy, to sing our own unique and authentic melody in the symphony of life? Before eternal silence reaches us and our song fades forever, what will you do with the time you have left? The choice is yours.